Welcome to my series on guitar fundamentals. This is lesson number 26. In this lesson, we're going to focus on Rasgueado, or strumming with the right hand. This type of playing is often associated with flamenco music, but it's also found in a lot of classical pieces as well, and it's a technique we should work on in order to play a lot of the Spanish repertoire and some modern pieces as well. So here it is. Let's dig right in. First off, the word Rasgueado is maybe new to you, and it's basically, it just means strumming in Spanish. So with this type of strumming, what we're actually doing is playing with the fingernail, the back of the fingernail. So we're playing with an outward motion like this instead of a plucking or inward motion that we usually do with associated with playing in a traditional way. So we're kicking the strings or flicking at the strings rather than pulling at them. So it's a very different feel, very different technique altogether than the traditional classical style of playing. So to begin with, what I would like to have you do is to practice this little exercise with your hands. It's a fantastic exercise, and it's really great for warming up your hands and building some strength and coordination as well. What it does is it focuses on the extensor muscles on the back side here that kind of pull the fingers away from the hand like this, okay? So here's the exercise. What you do is you start by trapping the fingers behind the thumb, all right? So the thumb becomes resistance to the fingers. So the fingers are pushing against the thumb. So you're pushing like you're trying to flick your hand open, but your thumb is holding your fingers back. All right, so you start with that, and you push against the thumb, then you release just one finger at a time. I usually start with the pinky finger first, so little finger. So start with that, flick that one outward, then the ring finger, then the middle, then index. You can even trap the thumb behind the index finger and push outward if you'd like. So anyway, here it is again. So it's little finger, then ring, then middle, index. And you can practice that little exercise a few times in a row, and you'll start feeling, if you haven't done it much, or it's been a while since you've done it, you'll probably start feeling it on the top of the forearms here. That's where the extensor muscles seem to really come into play back here. So just do that a few times every day before you practice, and it will help to warm up the extensor muscles. As long as you're pushing hard against the thumb and the thumb is resisting, that's what will help to develop that muscle. So there's your beginning introduction to Rasgueado playing, is to do this away from the guitar. All right, then next, let's take a look at doing just a single beat pattern with one finger. We're going to start with the index finger, and it's just this flicking motion where we're going to kick outward like this, like you're kicking something off a table. All right, so that's the movement we're actually trying to do. Now what we're going to do is make this okay shape here, and we're going to place the thumbnail on the bass strings. So you can see I've got the thumbnail planted here on the bass strings. All right, then we're going to kick outward, flick outward like this across the strings until we hit the treble strings. Now, I didn't do this because I didn't hit any strings because of the way I have my hand set up. This is just so I can kind of show you the motion first, all right? Then, in order for me to hit the strings, I'm going to need a little bit more angle. So I have to do this in order to propel this across the strings. Now, I'm only trying to hit the trebles like this and to flick across them. Not all six. All right, so this is trapped on, again, thumb on the bass strings, index finger firing across. So what I would do is I would just start with that exercise until you kind of get accustomed to where your hand needs to be positioned to hit the strings. Now don't dig in really deep into the strings. If you get too much angle, too much downward angle, like this, you're going to really push into the string too much. You need to go across the top of the string. So you're just barely touching. So this is not quite enough angle here. All right, you see the difference? Not enough angle. I can't hit the strings. Just right. Just hit too much angle. All right. So anyway, practice that. Do maybe a minute of this little exercise. Do that for a little while until you get comfortable with the hand placement and all of that. Then the next step would be to use middle and ring finger, M and A, together as a single finger, and they trap against the thumb and kick out. Same idea, just using middle and ring. So maybe a minute a day on that. Once you get past the index finger, start using these guys as well. Okay, then let's actually graduate from a single beat strum to a 4-beat strum. Can be used kind of as an ornament or a decoration where it sort of takes up only 1 beat also. But we're gonna use all 4 of these fingers now. We're gonna trap all of them behind the thumb and fire out one at a time across like this, starting with the little finger, the pinky finger. And we're gonna label this one as C. So it's gonna be letter C, then A, M, I. C, A, M, I. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is a little trickier than doing the single finger, but the rest of the mechanics are the same. Trap the thumb on the bass strings, the thumbnail sitting on the bass strings, trap the fingers behind the thumb, and then fire across one at a time. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you'll notice my other fingers stay trapped behind the thumb until it's their turn to play. This is going to be one of the hardest things to coordinate. When we first start out, it's really difficult just to make the pinky go by itself. All your other fingers are going to want to follow it, and believe me, it'll take you some time to develop this if you haven't done it already. So anyway, one at a time. All right, so that's the movement. You just 1, 2, 3, 4. Don't focus on going really fast in the beginning. Focus on making it really even, so your meter is really even. All the notes have the same amount of time. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so maybe a minute on that. Then let's add to the difficulty level once again. Let's do that same movement, but now we're going to actually bring our fingers back in and to do this as a continuous cycle of 4. So watch, the timing is really kind of tricky in the beginning here. So I'm going to do the first 3. 1, 2, 3. Then when I fire the index finger out, I'm going to exchange and pull these 3 back in. All right, 1, 2, 3, exchange. Okay, I exchanged these 3 fingers while the index kicks outward. 1, 2, 3, exchange. 1, 2, 3, exchange. Hopefully that made sense. Practice that for a minute or so. All right, once you're comfortable with that, then we're going to add another element. We're going to actually add a 5th note to the group. So instead of 4 notes, we're going to have 5. So it's going to be the same thing we just did. 1, 2, 3, exchange. And then I'm actually going to do an upstroke with the index finger. It's going to rake from the first string toward the basses. All right, so it's raking inward. So now I have 1, 2, 3, exchange and rake. 1, 2, 3, exchange, rake, backward. Okay, so that's a 5-beat pattern. It's actually quite common in flamenco music to have 5-beat groupings. Now you can make it 4 and just eliminate the pinky finger, the little finger. So it's going to be very similar movement. 1, 2, 3, exchange. 1, 2, exchange, and then rake. It may look like my little finger is playing, but it's actually not. It's just when I tense the hand up, the little finger fires outward. So, all right. Now, we can take this one step further and add the thumb to this process. Now the thumb is going to take the place of the first finger raking upward. Okay, so when we add the thumb, it actually plays from high strings toward the low strings, so from trebles toward the bass. And when we do this, it's like a turning the doorknob motion. So when we play back with the thumb, we're actually rotating the forearm here. So think of it as turning the doorknob. All right, so we would have 1, 2, 3, 4, but instead of the index finger raking backward, the thumb is beat 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. noisy around the house, so a lot of times I'll just mute the strings when I do these, and then I can practice them without driving everyone too crazy. All right, so that one added the thumb to the mix. Once again, focus on meter, making sure that they're really nice and even before you work on the speed part, because you have to get the meter right first. Speed will come once your meter is all squared away and you kind of relax your hands some. All right, then, so we've looked at actually 1-beat patterns, 4-beat, 5-beat patterns, but we haven't really done anything with either 2 or 3-beat patterns, so let's add those in. 2-beat patterns, or 2-note, I should say 2-note instead of 2-beat, 2-note patterns can be done quite simply with the index finger in down and up strokes. All right, so index finger can do that. You can also do these with middle and ring going downward and the thumb upward. So 1 and 2, and so if I do that same example. So these 2 fingers kicking outward with the thumb going backward. All right, so that's a 2-beat pattern. A 3-beat pattern that's pretty common that you could practice. It feels a little strange to do it first. It involves using ring, then index. So I'm skipping over middle finger. Ring, index, and then a rake backward with index. 1, 2, 3. So ring, index, index. Ring, index, index. All right, so a 3-beat pattern. You can also exchange the thumb for the index finger raking upward. So you'd have ring, index, thumb. All right, now with these ones, I tend to start with the thumb. It's a nice heavy sound for the low notes. If you want to have it sound kind of more Spanishy, flamenco, you could do this little Phrygian cadence and play a major chord, like an A major chord here. Some people play them like this. It's just 3 frets or 3 strings in a row, all on the same fret. 2nd string, 3rd string, 4th string, all at the 2nd fret. A major chord. So you practice that. Move up 1 fret. This is now a B flat. And then up 2 frets, it's a C. All right, so a little more exciting to practice with some chords in there instead of just open strings all the time. Anyway, we looked at single beat patterns, 2-beat patterns, 3, 4, and 5-beat patterns. Let me rephrase that. Single note, 2-note, 3-note, 4-note, and 5-note groupings for these Rasgueado patterns. They don't take up beats necessarily. They usually take up 1 beat, but they're 5 notes or 4 or however many. So anyway, I hope that you get a chance to practice these a little bit. You need to get them into your regular practice agenda and your technique practice so that you become comfortable with them. They do take a while to coordinate because most of us are not used to these extensor muscles working for us. So anyway, hope it helps you some, and I'll see you in the next lesson. Cheers.